Okay. Basically, in Python Django, what we have is it's actually a platform where you can develop the websites and publish a full website project. When we start working on the Python Django, let's start from there. Uh, the topic that I want to cover is the introduction and setup of Python Django. And what is Python Django programming is we need some softwares available with it. We need Visual Studio Code. We'll need um, obviously Python will be installed, and then we'll need to install Python's uh, Django framework to be working. We can use the virtual environment, but virtual environment is an optional point here, so we'll not worry about that for now. But in general, when we talk about what are the softwares that we'll need Visual Studio Code. We'll go with the programming that we will do. We'll not be doing too much programming in here, but whatever we'll do is very, very selective, and it's a kind of a mapping code that you will have to learn. And the next thing is when we are done installing actually Python, Django, and all its components like Visual Studio Code, we can start developing some applications in it. The applications that we're going to be doing here will not be a big application. We can learn a lot more about Python Django later on, but for now, just think of that we are developing a very basic website. Once the basic website is developed and we learn all the bells and whistles and the bare bones of Django platform, then we can move on to develop advanced websites. Uh, Sometimes what I have seen is that we jump right away into a 7 hour or 8 hour playlist, and then we lose the momentum in the middle and not able to learn. But with this playlist that I will going to make, it will not be that lengthy of a playlist, and we'll try to cover much of the hands-on part of it in these videos. So let's jump right straight into it. Well, let's say we have installed Visual Studio Code. In the Visual Studio Code, obviously, we all know that we can go to the terminal by selecting to the terminal, and we can start working on the project. We can also create in Visual Studio Code the virtual environment, but at the moment, just think of that we are not worried about creating the virtual environments. What virtual environment give you advantage is that with the virtual environment, you don't have to worry about mingling your actual Python environment with Django and other platforms that you are using. You can separate it out and develop your developer code in the virtual environment. And according to the need, you can move it to your computer or test environment or to the live environment as well. That is the whole purpose of the virtual environment. At the moment, this is just a little bit of demonstration that I'm showing you here. Most of the time, I'm not typing the code in these whole courses because it creates a lot of typographical mistakes and whatnot. So it is easier for me to show you all the well-written code which has no errors and moving on to the step by step to the next step. So you are able to see and not seeing me type all the code. It's already written. The code is already written. All you have to do when you are practicing it, you will be typing that code. So moving on, we can activate the environment as well. And in the activation, we will activate that particular environment. But in activation, because we are not working with the virtual environments, we'll not have to worry about this slide either. So Python is installed, virtual environment is installed. This is just an optional piece we don't need to worry about. And then obviously Django needs to be installed. So we cannot install Django like this. This is an erroneous command. The correct command is this: pip install Django. Okay, so it will install Django for you. So setting up the environment, setting up the project is the biggest part here. What we are trying to achieve here is to create our first project, a very bare bone first project, and then should be able to run that project. So in my computer, if I go and look at this Django project folder that I already created under my cloud drive, for example, uh, there are two projects, my first project and my second project. Naming convention is not as good because it is just a startup project. Later on, when we will be working on the advanced one, this is a very quick and dirty project that we are making, but this will give you a very good bare bone understanding of how the folder structure should be set up, how the coding has to be done. And then when you understand the mapping of it, then you can take that mapping to a bigger picture of making advanced projects. So at the moment you are seeing there's a first project and there's a second project as well. In structure, we are stopping at this folder, Django projects folder, and then it will automatically detect that there are two projects in here. This is the documentation part where I am taking my notes so that I'm putting it all in one place. But my F project and my second project is S project. My first project is my F project, which is not going to be used as much, but it's going to show you what is the folder structure looks like. So in every Django project that you will create, the folder name is created and the folder name has a subfolder inside it, which is the same name as the project folder name itself. So if I go inside this folder, you might be confused that why there is another folder, my F project. Well, you don't have to confuse because you have to stop here at the Django project folder itself. And then from there on, in Visual Studio Code, you will be going down the hierarchy. Similar to that, we have S project folder, and in the S project folder, we have a subfolder S project. There are some other folders that I've created later on, which we will discuss a little bit later. But if I go to the bare bones setup here, is that there's a folder with the same name created as the folder name that you have created, and then there's a manage.py file. We'll discuss about manage.py file later on, but manage.py file is the file which manages your project. So there are two important files that we will be looking at in Visual Studio Code. One is the manage, which will be a kind of a running class for you, like a main method, which we have learned. And the settings files, which we're going to be seeing, is this under this cross projects subfolder, which you don't have to worry about at the moment, but look at the settings file is the most important, which contains all the locations and the paths that you will be dealing with. So if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, don't worry about the code on the right side right now, but look at the hierarchy. The hierarchy is same as this is the Django projects folder. It is coming in capital letters, so which kind of makes sense. But this is the same documentation folder which you saw, and this is my first project, and this is my second project folder that you are seeing.